Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 60, the Babe Ruth episode of Material Issues. I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. Joining me from the other coast, my very good friend from the International Pop Overthrow Festival, currently going on right now in LA, Mr. David Bash. David, how are you feeling tonight, Bananas?
I'm well, Mark. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's Wednesday night at Material Issues. How can you not feel well?
Exactly. Just to point out, IPO is starting tomorrow, although depending upon when you watch this,
yes,
watching it archived a couple of days from now, then yeah, IPO will be going on. The Babe Ruth episode tonight, and in honor of that, I have this great picture that my friend Barry from Brooklyn gave me. It's a picture of Yogi Berra when he's a rookie, I believe, or very close to it, and Babe Ruth and you can tell he's already being ravaged by cancer. Unfortunately, he's a lot thinner than he had been.
Yeah, that's a cool picture. I love it.
It really is. So Barry Dreyfus, thank you very much. If you happen to be watching,
have not seen Barry in quite a while. Barry,
I know. What's the deal?
I don't know, but I miss you, buddy. Oh,
yeah,
up to Brooklyn soon and say hi. I miss those guys.
Definitely. Yeah, Dave, of course, Dave Boogeyman, who lives in the same building. Anyway, yeah, IPO San Diego last weekend went very, very well. We were doing it at a venue called the Black Cat Bar, and nice little place. Owner's a pretty cool guy. Sound was all right. The bands were excellent. The crowds were good. So all in all, it was a success.
Yeah, good.
Other than being rear-ended, my car, that is.
That's not how I heard it, but go ahead with your story. You did get hit from behind.
Yes, I did. Yeah, it's like that Rubette song. The way the neighbors heard it. That song "Rumors" that they did. Some of our UK people might know that song, but. I was trying to make a left into the hotel check-in area. There was no way to do it because the line was spilling out into the street with cars. So the next thing I know, crash right in the back. Turned out we were both okay, and turned out that the car was okay. The only thing that happened was just a little bit of a rip in the bumper. And since this is a 17-year-old car, I wasn't going to make the guy who hit me give me his insurance. It's like, don't worry about it. So I sent him home.
And now joining us live, a representative from Nationwide Insurance.
Yeah, right.
It's all good. Well, I'm glad.
I should have come like with a neck brace on.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I'm glad you're all right. I'm glad San Diego went well, and looking forward to the start of IPO LA. And we hope that rocks for.
I'm sure it'll rock. It begins tomorrow, and then we're off on Friday. A little scheduling snafu, but then from Saturday to Saturday, the 16th through 23rd.
Wow.
And we have more than 60 bands. It'll be fun. And I've got my Banana Splits shirt for for those of you who are watching. It's not just the logo.
It's the whole band. Now, wait, who were the four members of the band? Do we remember?
I forget. I think Snork is one of them. I can't remember their names. It's funny because I obviously I remember the Tra La La song.
Yeah, because you get to that point. It's like Flegel, Beagle.
They name everyone. Oh yeah, Flegel and Beagle or and Flugel. I don't know. They name everyone in the song, but I don't remember them.
Oh, that's awesome! I love the shirt though. I love the T-shirt.
No, it's really cool.
It's great. It's good. Hey, I wanted to briefly mention because I just got it in the mail. Our good buddy Jeremy with a brand new CD called "Stood Still." If you're a fan of Jeremy, man, this one, it just seems like all his CDs, I go, wow, this one is really, but this one takes it to another level. Some more stuff with Ken Stringfellow, but really good stuff. And
I played it yesterday actually, and he's coming to IPO LA, and we'll be playing on the afternoon of the 17th. So
Nice.
hopefully we hear some songs from the new album.
Oh,
There we go.
there's
Hey,
the
Lisa,
lovely
how are you?
Lisa Michaels. How are you, Lisa?
Good to see you. And there you go. And yeah, Lisa Lisa will also be playing in her band, the 7 and 6 on
Nice.
on that same bill that Jeremy's on.
Excellent.
I
Wow.
believe. Or is that? Wait a
It's a
minute.
good night.
Is he on that bill? I think so. I forget. Sorry, Lisa. I don't remember when anyone's playing right now. Hey, Mark. Hi, David. Hi, Lisa. Yeah, the
It's
7 and
nice
6.
to see Lisa. Yeah.
The 7 and 6. No, they're not playing on the same bill as Jeremy. They're playing on the 17th.
So
In the afternoon.
actually, when you got rear-ended, it did do a little damage, didn't it?
No.
Be honest.
I was already like this. I'm having more senior moments than Burt Mustin. Remember him?
Yes.
Actor the actor from who actually did most of his work when he was an old man.
Yeah.
But I remember him on that Twilight Zone episode, Kick the Can.
Yeah.
And on the Brady Bunch.
Brady.
Playing a guy whose dad was killed by Jesse James.
Yes. I remember that.
Yeah. Anyway,
Hey, Gary.
I mentioned the word cool earlier, and that's the operative word today because as our guest, we have the mastermind, the founder and CEO of Kool Kat Musik, all with K's. There is no C in that name. And Kool Kat has now become the biggest pop music mail order company in the world. I mean, if you want, if you're looking for the pop music, the kind that the pop cognoscenti know about, a lot of power pop, but also, other things under the umbrella. You'll find it at Kool Kat because he finds out about everything, and he sells it. Because of him, the physical product is able to stay alive and well, and not only a mail order company, I should say, but a label as well. And he's put out some really good stuff over the years, some great albums, some of my favorites actually. And so we as pop music fans owe him a great debt of gratitude, and I think I owe him about $1,000. So
besides
great debt of money too. So without further ado, would you please give a huge welcome to Mr. Ray Gianchetti?
Good evening, Ray.
Hi, how are you? Hold on a second, David. You just got my calculator out. I'm figuring out how much you actually owe me. Give me a second. No, I'm kidding. And hi to Lisa. So and maybe I'll spill the beans. The next 7 and 6 record is going to come out through Kool Kat, and that's coming.
There we go.
Great.
Yeah, she's a talented, cute lady. Obviously, the princess of pop, queen of pop.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No argument
and,
there.
She's a joy to work with, and her husband Tom.
Yeah.
So,
Tom's great.
I'm looking forward to that. So.
I was actually listening to her and her husband on Sunday night. They had that psychedelic show online, and I was guest 65. I didn't introduce myself. I felt like I was on the dating game. I don't think they knew it was me, but I was commenting on a lot of things. Great show, but yeah, it's all good. Lisa's fantastic. But we're here to talk about Ray and Kool Kat. Shout out Pop Detective, Kool Kat, and all the companies cater. Brian in Denver. Thank you, Brian.
Brian in Denver of Twist and Shout Records, which is a really good record store. I've only been there once because I've only been to Denver once. But great store. I hope to go back.
They've been around a while too.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, let's talk about young Ray a little bit. We like to get a little perspective on where you came from and what got you into your love of music and when you started really collecting music. Did you come from a background of parents that had a lot of music? What was your story?
Well, I was born in the 50s. Growing up, listening to the people that struck me were obviously Elvis was big by the time I was really aware of music. My parents liked music, but they weren't big collectors. My father had some records. He was into the big band era, but didn't really push it on me, or even at home. I don't remember a lot of music being played other than on the radio. My mother played more music. She was really into the singers, Sinatra and Nat King Cole, Tony Bennett, all the classic guys. And it's funny. I listen to them now. I would never listen to them back then. And
isn't that the truth though? Yeah.
Cole is no longer here, but if she only knew, I just listened to the Sinatra Joe Beam record last week, which is really nice if you've never heard it. Some great arrangements and stuff. So
That's actually interesting that you say all that, Ray, because I remember when I was in my early 20s, I used to brag that I had Dino Martin and Ricky Martin records, but not Dean. Yeah. Now I have a lot of Dean, and I listen to it a lot. But as a kid, it was like I just thought it was kind of bizarre to be able to say that.
Yeah, you couldn't relate. You couldn't relate to those guys when you were, when the Beatles were around. So it started out with Elvis, and I do remember a story. My mom telling me that when American Bandstand was based in Philadelphia, that was my babysitter, and she would put me in a high chair with food in front of me at 4 o'clock or 4:30, and Dick Clark babysat me while I ate. So obviously, I don't remember a lot of the music. I was absorbing music back then. But I always tell people, ground zero for me were the Beatles, the Stones, the British invasion, pretty much. And I mean, I've learned to like things prior to that, later in life. But that's what started the whole mania for me of buying records and seeking out new artists.
Were you raised in the Philadelphia area?
Yes. Yeah, I was born in Philadelphia, but grew up in South Jersey, not far from where I live now.
Oh, wow.
So there were radio stations, top 40 stations back in the day that sick days at home, when I wasn't allowed to get out of bed, in case I was playing hooky or something, I used to have, Wibbage on or WFIL, and I would listen to, back then when they were playing everything, from Sinatra to Dylan to Motown, and then at night with the transistor under my pillow, I would listen to WBZ up in Boston, and I would hear the Remains and the Barbarians, like local hits that were not quite national hits yet. So that was a good exposure.
Did you listen to WABC at all?
I did. Yeah, 77. Yeah. You would get that more on the Jersey beaches. You can get that maybe because there was less interference. But yeah, I remember listening to that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you remember what your first purchase was, or when you got your first record player or stereo?
I do. My first record player. This is kind of embarrassing, but I'll tell you. My mother bought a doll, and the doll came with a record player. The record player was pink. Okay. Now I'm in like fourth grade, Beatle era, so I just was thrilled to have a record player. I don't even know if it played LPs, because back then I didn't have albums. I bought 45s.
Right,
so, right. She Loves You was one of my first 45s. Any Beatles, early Stones. And then I branched out: Animals, Zombies, Hollies, Beau Brummels, whatever I liked at the time. But it was primarily singles. I didn't get an album until maybe fifth grade, sixth grade, and I think it was probably Meet the Beatles. Probably was my first album.
How did you fund your purchases? Did you have any? Did you cut grass like I did? I cut grass. I shoveled snow. I did paper routes, anything I could find to make it.
I got an allowance when I was young for doing chores around the house. I didn't rent myself out to neighbors necessarily, but if you're just doing learning the responsibility of doing things around the house, I would get some. Back then, you can go buy the hit of the week for like 49 cents.
Yeah.
So fortunately, you just hoped it was something you wanted. But so yeah, I did that, and then it's funny. Then when I got into high school, I joined the Columbia Record Club because I got all these free records, right? So this is probably how the whole selling of music started. So I'm in high school, like 10th grade, I'll say. So now, my friends are, wow, where'd you get all those records? Oh, I joined the Columbia Record Club. You get 10 free. You only have to buy 6 over the course of the year.
No, it was 10 for a penny, Ray.
10 for a penny.
Yeah,
maybe it was 10. You're right. But the thing was, when you got people to sign up, you got free records.
Yeah.
The original pyramid scheme. Love it.
But I had a lot of angry parents who were their kids were getting records shipped to them that they didn't want because they failed to fill the card out to say I'm going to pass on this month's suggestion.
Yeah.
That was their gimmick. It was never like, if you want it, let us know. It was always, if you don't want it, let us know.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Suddenly the $18 record shows up.
Yeah.
And one
parents get the bill, right?
Yeah. So that was kind of the start, and that's when I mean, not so much selling them, but collecting them. Now I had access to all this free stuff, that I didn't have the money to buy, and the Columbia Record Club back then, they you had anything on Columbia, and they did other labels. They were still rather limited, but I discovered bands that I didn't even hear, and nobody even told me about. I bought the first free album because they look good. I'm thinking if this band sounds as good as they look, tons of sobs. I became a huge Free fan. The Churls, the band from Canada on A&M, they had like some oddball stuff, and even like the Buckingham's Portraits. Yep. I thought that was like their Sgt. Pepper. That was like a great record for me. Things like that I never would, even if I had the money, wouldn't have gone out and bought because there would have been other things I wanted to buy that would have took, precedent.
Yeah, no, you're right about Columbia House. They had the Columbia Record Club. They had Capitol. They had a bunch of labels. They didn't have Warner Brothers. I remember being disappointed in that.
No, and the one that I did one time is because their catalogs that you got in the mail were so skimpy. I actually wrote to them and said, "What's your complete catalog? What can you offer besides what I see?" in 5 pages or 6 pages, because they tended to focus maybe on either the better sellers or the more recent releases. And they did send me a list, and that's how I found the Churls and bands like that, because they weren't heavily featured. The first Fairport Convention record.
Oh yeah, A&M was a big label for them. Yeah.
I mean, there was some pretty cool stuff I got that I never.
I'm trying to remember though. Did Columbia House eventually at some point have the little stamps that you would like lick and put your 10 selections? They were like a little S&H green stamp.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember that. I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know what I
think they did later on, maybe.
Yeah.
It was almost like peeling out the little album and then putting.
By the mid '70s, I think they were doing that.
Yeah, I think I might have graduated from that by then. I don't know. I might have had money by then.
Hey Ray, did you ever buy anything just on the fact that the album looked good? I mean, you had no idea who the band was.
Free. He did that with Free.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're talking about
later on, when in 1968, when I began getting turned on to the underground music, I remember going to a Sears store in South Philadelphia with money. I bought Steppenwolf's first album because it had that foil cover and they looked really great. I bought Moby Grape Wow because it came with a second disc for the price of one, and I didn't even know who Moby Grape was at that time. I bought Freak Out, The Mothers of Invention. I bought the Stooges' first album because that was later, but just the fact that they look like the Stones. I think if they sound anything like they look, So it was by accident. It didn't get burned too many times, but.
I was going to say, you ever get the big burn where you brought something home and it was like, whoa, what did I just do?
To this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Hey, someone checking in from Brazil said hello, Ray.
It must be Pablo, I bet.
Oh, Pablo, maybe.
Pablo Malia.
He's
the only person I know in Brazil. So.
Ray, we all got burned that way. I mean, I bought a lot of my power pop that way. If a band looked power pop, I had to take a chance. I remember the Criers album on Mercury. I looked at those guys and I said, "Oh, come on, that's a pop band. I'm buying
that was a great record, and that's a great record.
It turned out to be a great one.
Yes, it is.
There have been a few others. I blocked it out of my memory, but
and later on, back in the early 70s, I met a couple of guys I was mentioning earlier who opened my mind up to so many things. I thought, I didn't have an older sibling, and I had friends who liked music, but not like these guys. These guys were in it deep. And they were collecting singles way before I was, for non-LP B-sides and things like that. They opened, and I turned them on to stuff too, but I have to say in the end, they turned me on to a lot more than I was aware of at the time. And that's when everything exploded. That would have been like 1973, 1974. Right. I might have had a couple hundred albums by then, but it grew, exponentially
Yeah,
I think,
especially
I
if
think
you don't have an older brother or
Yeah.
older sibling, and I didn't either. You need friends. My college friends, they turned me on to Big Star, Chilliwack, a bunch of other bands like that. I don't know when I would have found out about them.
That's the same group of people, David, that turned me on to those
Yeah,
people.
see, there you go.
But isn't that the beauty of that time period, the 60s into the 70s, in that, I was the same way. I didn't have older brother, but I had parents' friends, my parents' friends who had kids that were 3-4 years older than I was, 5 years old. We'd go to their house for dinner, and they'd be like, "Want to come see my record collection?"
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they're pulling stuff out that I never had a clue existed. They're putting this stuff on, and you're just like,
Yeah.
mind
I mean
blown.
and radio back in the day, the FM stations, David mentioned NEW here in Philly before MMR, it was Wi-Fi with was it Johnny Devereaux, the Marconi experiment.
Yes.
I mean Dave Herman when he was here in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, he was on NEW also.
WDAS FM was the first underground station here. I mean, I heard a lot of stuff there that I never would have known otherwise. I mean, I'm thinking like Terry Reid, even like the Ainsley Dunbar Retaliation. I mean,
wow.
I grew to really like. I heard there first. And some one-off things too. Saloon Sinclair and the Mother Bear. I don't know if you know or heard that.
I don't.
Chrysalis was another band. They had one song, and usually the song that you heard was the best on the record. But I had to get those records because just for the nostalgia of those songs.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Did you, Ray? Did you ever have any aspirations of being a musician? Were you in a band?
I was, but I was always in cover bands. I was in one band. We were like a prog band in college.
Wow.
I was really into. Then I was into my King Crimson Caravan phase, and we did original stuff. But other than that, I was in cover bands, and it's one of those things. Even as an athlete, if you're not good enough to play, you end up coaching. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. I knew what I liked. I just maybe couldn't achieve it.
Well, what did you play?
I played guitar, rhythm guitar, and I was the lead vocalist in most. And actually, I played bass in a couple of bands too.
Oh wow!
Yeah, well, there were more guitar players around than bass players, so if you played bass, you had a better shot at getting in a band.
Good point.
So it depended. I didn't matter. It didn't mind. I didn't matter to me. Being in a band was the most important thing.
Oh, of course, in those days, yeah, indeed. Same way, same thing for me. But now. When did the idea of starting a label pop into your head, or have anything to do with selling music or starting the catalog type of thing? Where did that come from? What's the genesis of
1981? I was in a cover band, and I was out scouting bars in South Jersey to play. And when I went to this one bar, Mark, you'll know the town, Franklinville.
Oh, yeah.
I went to this one bar, and the bar owner saying, "Well, what kind of music do you play?" I handed her a tape, but she didn't listen to the tape. But, we played like 60s stuff and, Rolling Stones, blah, blah, blah. She goes, "Well, wow, you sound like another band that plays here." I said, "Who are they?" She said, "They're called The Agents." I said, "I've never heard of them." So like a week later, the girl I was dating and I was living in Pennsylvania at the time. We took a ride there to hear them. And I really liked them. They did original stuff. They were doing more like new wave kind of stuff. They did like Kind of Cute by Joe Jackson. They did some pretty cool songs. They were a three-piece, but they kind of reminded me of the Plimsolls live. And I befriended them. And at that time, I was working for the Franklin Mint. I'd helped them start a record division. So
wow.
I knew where and how to get a record pressed. I didn't know how to market a record, but I knew where to get it pressed. So I talked to these guys. I said, you guys should put out a record. "Oh, yeah, we got, So it turned out it was an EP, and that was the first Kool Kat release in 1981.
Oh, wow.
It was on vinyl, and they lasted about another year or two later. They used to support Robert Hazard a lot in the area.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Hazard really liked them. They opened for them in a lot of college gigs. They would play the bars, too. But they were good. I thought they were good. But I thought the record they made really kind of came off kind of wimpy compared to their live sound. They didn't really have a producer, that heard them the way. And not that I'm a producer, but it was more like a demo, that came out. It was still good. The songs were good, but it could have had a lot more punch to it.
Yeah, such a typical story. I mean, you always, when you'd read interviews with bands from the 60s or even the 70s, they'd say, this record doesn't really do us justice. When live, we rock.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I like the record better.
Yeah.
Did you come right out of the shoots, Ray, with the name Kool Kat?
Yes.
Where did that come from?
Well, I was a big Squeeze fan back then, and I had my first cat back then. So instead of Cool for Cats, it was Kool Kat. With K's. Yeah, and I had a woman I worked with. She designed a logo. It was a different logo than what I use now. It was a cat reclining like in a beanbag.
Do you have one around that you can show us, or no?
What, the single?
The old logo, or
I'll send you a single, but I'll add it to your total that you. That's another. They're going for like $40 these days. So
that's an expensive single. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was the one. Actually, yeah, that was the only. Yeah, I think that was the only one we did with them. I don't think the Auto Wild CD, the first CD I did, I don't think that had the old logo. I think that the 45 or the EP was the only one that had it. So that was like from 81 to like almost 2000. That was like a 20-year gap. Wow. I never released anything else. I sold music in between then. I ran ads in Gold Mine and Trouser Press and
under Kool Kat. I must have seen your ads.
No, it was Off the Beaten Track was one of the seller names I used. I don't know what other one I did, but that now I'm talking like 70s into the 70s, and I actually put an ad like a classified in the back of Trouser Press, like everybody would do. Send a self-addressed stamped envelope, and you get my list. I developed a list, that way, a mailing list, without running actual, listings, add listings in there. So I was basically selling off stuff in my collection that I foolishly shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And
we've all been there.
And then as I got into the 80s, I made a few trips to England with the intention of not only buying for me, but buying with the idea of, flipping some of the extra ones, so.
Do you remember Dumont?
Yes.
Dumont, yeah.
God, they're the ones who turned me on to the Toms. I remember.
That was David. That was the guy in New York, right?
Yeah.
Young kid. Young guy that ran it.
His name was Chris. I don't remember him being particularly young, like in his maybe late 20s. But
well, he used to run ads in Gold Mine all the time.
Yeah, that's how I found out.
I had a friend who worked for him briefly too. So I actually went to the Dumont headquarters one time when I was in New York.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Yeah, they had a lot of good stuff. I did order things from them. Absolutely.
I think I got the Smithereens EP through them also.
Well, the guy who worked for them, my friend who I became, he's the one who turned me on to the Smithereens. So that makes total sense.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. He had the EP, the first independent EP that they did.
I'll bet you and I were in a record store together at some point and never knew it. Because I used to go down to Philly. Well, 3rd Street Jazz, possibly.
Well, probably. I was at 3rd Street Jazz all the time.
In Upper Darby?
Where?
Val Shively's.
No, I never went to Val's, but I had a connection. I had a guy, a Brit, who used to come over. His name is Adrian Crosdale. He compiles a lot of the R&B collections for the Ace label, Kent label, and
oh wow, okay.
And he would come over on buying trips. He would spend time in New York with people, and then when he was in the Philadelphia area, he would spend time with me. Well, what I used to do, I would go home from lunchtime because it was where I lived from where I worked at the Franklin Mint was about 5 minutes away. I would pick him up, drive him into Media, PA. He would take the trolley into 69th Street and go to Val's and spend days in Val. And Val, he was one of the few people back then that Val would allow to actually go back into the warehouse and go through the shelves. Usually you had to show up with a want list, and Val's assistant would go back and pick it if they had it. But Adrian had the run of the place. So I would give him my list. Because Val could be kind of cranky sometimes,
Tell me about it.
Yeah, especially, and I wasn't a regular, so he wouldn't give me any kind of slack, I'm sure. But so Adrian used to pick up stuff for me, and on the Adrian side, when he would come back, I'd be up all night making cassettes of a lot of the R&B singles that he had. I would be skimming them, whether it be the A and B sides, even if it's people, and most of the people I didn't even know. I made like 24 hours of R&B tapes from a couple of his trips that he had done, you know. So he was my in with Val. So I never really went there. I had friends who would go there, but as long as I gave the list to Adrian, I mean, he would bring like, maybe 3, 4 items, 5, over the course. And, and it depended what they cost too. He would call me or, take a flyer on what he thinks I would pay for it. Sometimes he would just comp me because he was staying at my place, I wasn't sure.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, well, he would do the same when I was in England too. That kind of helped out. But,
well, so what were you doing between the sale of your first single and, let's say, the Idlewiles, when you weren't really when you weren't an operating label? What were you doing?
Well, I was doing like mail order on and off, like I said. That was part time. I worked at the Franklin Mint from 1975 to 1987. 10 of those years were spent in their record division in various roles.
Hey, Ray, real quick, where was the Franklin? Is it still located in the same place? Where is it?
If you knew where it was, you wouldn't even know it was there.
That's why I'm asking.
It was
That
on
sounds
Route
like
1.
a Yogi Berra-ism.
It was on Route 1, just south of Media, where the old original Wawa dairies were. They were across the street. That building they're building a shopping/living complex there, huge. They're extending the SEPTA line to run a train to that area. Yeah, it's a shame. I mean,
I was always curious as to where that was.
They were the largest employer in that county for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, they ran 3 shifts every day. They had offices all around the world at their peak. Yeah. So, I worked for them. I left them in '87. I went to work for NARM, which is a trade association for record and retailers, and then they started a video counterpart for video dealers. I worked for them for 4 years. The funny thing is, right after I left the Mint, they had nobody to do the job I was doing, and they were winding the record division down. They weren't going to promote any new programs. So I ended up consulting for them for like 3 years on the side while I was working at NARM. And then in 1990, I got offered a job at EMI Distribution. And worked for them from 90 to 98. When I left there, that's when, literally the day after I left, Kool Kat opened its doors. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew I wanted to do something on my own because, I didn't need to be motivated by any outside forces. I always knew what I wanted to do, and I always knew I wanted to do music in some form.
Well,
hold on, Mark, I got to say this because this was great. This was a perfect Yogi Berra-ism that Ray said. If you knew where it was, you wouldn't even know it was there.
I
love it.
Sums it up.
I love that. We're gonna.
I drive by there every once in a while, and the more I drive by, the more it changes. I don't even know where the original entrance is anymore. They've changed it. They've graded the landscape. Everything is so high up now. You can see buildings if you're at the top of the hill before you get down to the bottom of that hill. You can see the buildings are like miles away that they're making right now. So it's a shame,
It's like driving past Route 70 where the Latin Casino was.
Yes,
and it's now just a field. It's not. It was the Subaru headquarters, and then that's all gone. It's just.
I didn't realize that. Okay, I remember that. I remember where that was. Yeah.
Yeah, Latin Casino. Everybody who was anybody. You talk about the crooners played there.
Yeah. Sorry, anybody who doesn't live in this area to know what we're talking about.
The
Latin Casino became Silk. Was it not Silk City?
Emerald City.
Emerald City after that.
Emerald City, yeah.
I saw Paul Collins beat there one time.
Paul Collins, I was there. Paul Collins, Ramones, the Go-Go's in their first East Coast tour. Holly and the Italians, everybody.
The Jam played there. I didn't go. I wasn't there for that. Yeah. Great place, great club. Yeah,
great club. Lamenting.
So what made you decide to get into the Kool Kat thing full time and start becoming a mail order label?
Well, because I'd always kind of dabbled in it before 1998, and then I was at the point where when I was working at EMI, I had gone through my third regime change in 8 years, you know what happens, Mark, you would know, work in corporate America. When the regime comes in, they want to bring their own people in, and they kind of make things uncomfortable for you. And at that point, I'd met my now wife. We were building a house where we live now. I wasn't going anywhere. You know, they wanted me to move to Maryland, you know, knowing that I probably wouldn't. So, you know, I negotiated a nice package, which kind of helped me get things set up. And initially, it wasn't even about a record label. It was about doing these corporate fundraising events where I was allowed to go on site to a lot of these large corporate buildings and set up like a mini store and sell CDs and cassettes back then.
Wow.
That was in 1998. They were still making cassettes, but I mean they're making them now, but they were still a viable format.
Right.
And so I was doing that. I was doing all these, you know, most of them were fundraisers, you know. So it was the contributions I made were my rent for the day, and ultimately, you know, it went from records and cassettes to records and LPs, but so that was like 98 to like 2000, and 2000 is when I decided to start a label and get back into doing mail order again. And I started out doing mostly used CDs that I would find in stores in the area that were mostly power. A lot of stuff on Big Deal you would see everywhere, you know. And you know, I figured I'd put a list together. If I like this, some other people are going to like it too. You know, I was aware of, you know, Bruce and Not Lame back then. I was a customer, but I thought, well, I'm taking a little different route. You know, I'm doing the more the used stuff. And then little by little, you know, bands and labels started, when they found out about me, started approaching me about selling their stuff. And then I got more comfortable about releasing more stuff under the Kool Kat banner. And it kind of took off from there. And thanks to the pandemic, I was looking to wind it down anyway, because that fundraising thing, because companies were having such large layoffs, and even before the pandemic, they were allowing people to work from home, so they weren't in these buildings. You know, they had thousands of people. Now they might have had hundreds there on a given day, and it really wasn't worth all the schlepping. As much as I liked the interaction, and I made a lot of friends there, and you know, and then, you know, sharing my knowledge, turning them on to not power pop things, unfortunately, but other areas of music like jazz and blues or whatever, classic rock that I like. You know, that was kind of fulfilling as well. So 2 years ago, you know, in 2020, I decided to go full-time mail order / label, and I'm selling, besides the pop stuff, I'm selling things online, rare vinyl, things like that too. So now that my days out are going out looking for records, you know. So
wow, I didn't even know you were selling rare vinyl. Now
I'm on Amazon and Discogs. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. I don't know if there's anything you would like, David. I mean, I got a really good Wayne Newton record today.
Oh wow, which one? No, I'm kidding.
It's the hits.
What were some of your early?
One man's trash is another man's treasure. I mean, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what some of these things go for sometimes. You know.
No, I know. Constantly amazed.
I'm the Fred Sanford of record selling online.
I guess I'm the Aunt Esther. So what were some of the early releases on Kool Kat around 2000, 2001?
Well, the first one was the Idlewilds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was a fan, and I befriended them because during my latter days at EMI, Arden Records was distributed by EMI for a brief time. So their first album, the Young, Gifted, and Beautiful, was, I think, on Arden, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was. So I got to know David Gray, who was living in Philadelphia at the time. So it kind of made sense. So when I left and the band broke up, you know, I contacted him. I said, you know, you have stuff laying around that might be worth putting out, and that kind of grew from that. Then it was bands like Maple Mars were one of my early ones. I really have to go back and look. Some I don't even remember at this point, but you know, it was either bands I liked or like you have in the past, David, bands who people have recommended to me that I wasn't aware of. But it started. The first CD release was the Idlewilds.
And what's the? Do you know what the grand total is to date on a Kool Kat label? What's the?
About 225, 230.
Wow.
That's pretty darn impressive, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. A lot. They're coming fast and furious more recently because I've been devoting more time, and plus, it's nice when bands come to you and you don't have to go track them down. It's kind of it's kind of nice.
But there's there's a lot of work involved, and obviously I know the work involved, and it's not a simple process, and that many releases is really something, and congrats on it all.
Well, I hope it's quality and not quantity. That's the whole. That's my.
Yeah, it's definitely
kind of my mantra. It's like if I don't like it, not release it. I won't even feature it on my site. I gotta.
Yeah.
How can I tell you something's really good when I don't really think that? I'll lose you as a customer.
But that's not what you're. A number like 225 sneaks up on you. It's not like you're just trying to do quantity.
No.
You're doing quality releases, but then all of a sudden you look back on time and you look at a number and you say, there's 225 releases on the Kool Kat label. That's awesome, my friend. That's really.
Thank you.
One of the most fascinating releases, and one of the, for lack of a better term, coolest, was the pencils. How did that come about?
Yeah. I was a fan back in the day. I mean, I found out about them through one of the British papers. I mean, either the NME or Melody Maker, which I was subscribing to the NME back then. And, they would do the reviews every week. And their single that came out at the time might not have even got a great review, but the references kind of touched the nerve. I'm thinking, wait a minute, nothing can be, they weren't Beatles-ish, but nothing can be too Beatles-ish to me, and that makes me want to hear it more,
Sure.
So I bought their singles, and it so happened in 1983, work sent me over to Europe on a project and for a week, and then I took a week and stayed at Adrian's flat in London, and in the interim, I was contacting bands that I liked. John Wilson, the Heartbeats. David, I think you would know who he is. He was in the Dodgers.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Drew Barfield of the Keys. I wanted to see if any of these guys were playing because unless you got there that week and got time out or something like that, you didn't know where these kind of obscure bands were playing. So I had managed to get a hold of the Pencils manager, who was a guy named Derek Nickel, who used to manage Nazareth, and he was their manager. And I told him what a fan I was, and he said that, they have an album, it never came out. I said, I'm a big fan. Well, he said, I'll make you a cassette. So I met him for a drink. He gave me the cassette, and which I made multiple copies of. God forbid if that cassette ever broke, I never would have had another copy, And then I had a friend burn me a disc of it when CDs came around. He wanted to make sure I could preserve it as much as I could. So I don't know, when I was thinking about things, I thought, this would be really cool because, as far as I knew and the band knew for a while, there was never an LP that came out. It was supposed to. So I managed to track Dan Pugsley down, the main guy. And he said, it's funny you mention this because just 6 months ago, we learned that there actually was an LP that only came out in Germany. I said, it's kind of funny you say that because when I called Derek Nickel to see if there were tapes, he said, they're probably in the studio in Germany. He never told the band that the record came out. So they only found out from a fan that it did.
That's insane.
Yeah. So, so we struck a relationship up. And in fact, I just talked to him yesterday, as a matter of fact, because we're doing a tribute. I think I told you this, David. We're doing a 2 CD tribute to the Pencils, and we're trying to wrap it up. A couple people have dropped out, and we're trying to, fill the slots. And so I was just like a major fan, to this day, major fan. They really, even in the cover band I was in back then, we did a couple of their songs. Not very well, I might add, but we did them. We tried. But so that's how that came about.
Well, we're very thankful for that. Of course, Dan is still rocking with the Speedways, right?
Pardon?
Dan is still rocking, isn't he?
Yes, with the overtures.
The overtures, not the Speedways. Sorry.
The Speedways are good too.
They are. They are. Sorry, Dan, if you're listening, I should have known that.
That overtures record is great.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's even better than the Speed. I mean, they're both great.
Yeah, but no, it's much more rooted in the '60s. Yeah.
Now, Ray, of of the 225 releases on Kool Kat,
Oh man.
what's the one? What's the one that makes you go? I mean, they're all your babies. You love them all, but
Right.
is there one that makes you go, holy cow, I can't believe that happened. I can't. I
got to say it's probably the pencils.
I'm
Not and that's not a slight to anybody else. But
That's
the
what
fact that was a passion for me for almost 30 years, and it actually happened. And it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for me. So there's a lot of satisfaction in that. Plus, I love the music too. So that's very high up the list. And there's one I always thought should have done better, and that didn't, and that was David. You know these guys, Pipitone, Nick Pipitone.
Oh, yeah.
One of the early releases I did was a record by Pipitone. It's called Music for Minivans. I thought that was a great record.
It is.
I mean, it's sold, but not as many as I would have hoped. Every once in a while, I dig it out and put it on an update just in case people,
I have it right here.
Getting new people on my. You have it, Mark?
I have it here. I have it here somewhere.
All right, good.
See if it was in my
T section. Fine, you'll see. And every once in a while, I'll feature it again because I got people, being added to my list every time, and I can't take it. I sometimes take it for granted that people, why am I putting this up there again? They probably have it. They know about it. And they'll sell. I'll sell a handful or a lot, depending. I just don't know what, and for whatever reason, they didn't have the money back then. They weren't paying as much attention back then, whatever, And a lot of this music, as you know, sounds as fresh today as it did back then. It's not really dated, and I think that's one of the endearing qualities of this kind of music. People poo-poo it, but, I dare you to tell me when something was recorded, unless it was, electronic drums or something like that, then you could possibly date it then.
You know what I have to say about those people who poo-poo it? One of these two fingers.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
What's your biggest seller, or do you know?
Biggest seller was Fooling April.
Oh wow!
Whoa. Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
I didn't sell the most, but it sold the most. And you know them, Dave, because I know they played IPO Chicago for you one year.
Yeah, and Boston, I think.
Did they? Yeah, well, that was their whole thing. They were young kids that were unencumbered. They would go anywhere. They traveled up and down. They've opened for Dave Matthews. They played at colleges. They played high schools. They played in stores. They would play anywhere. And, I did the CD with them. And people say, well, what's your biggest seller? I said, well, how many did you sell? Well, maybe 3,000, maybe or more. Really? I go, wow. I go, well, that's how many sold. I sold maybe 300 of them. They sold the balance because they would sell them at shows. We were always repressing, and they were getting the line share of the repressings.
Wow.
And they were to me the epitome of how to promote themselves. A lot of bands these days, for various reasons, they're older, whatever, they don't get out and play as much, or they don't play out as all. They're a studio band, and it's as a mail order outlet, you can only do so much.
Right.
Now you're relying on reviews, you're relying on airplay that you hope people are taking notice of or taking interest in, and even that you hit a wall after a while. But that's the biggest seller.
Hi.
Well, I just want to make when we talk about the online store, we talk about your selling stuff. Scrolling across the bottom, that's how they find you. Kool Kat Musik. It's all with K's. KoolKatMusic.com.
Correct. Except for the C in com is not a K.
That's right.
But that's where you can find Ray. That's where you can find not only all the Kool Kat releases, but just tons of music out there. It's a great online record store. And you carry magazines, you carry publications, you carry different things that pop up as well. So check out KoolKatMusic.com. Whatever you see, you won't be disappointed. Great.
And that dovetails nicely into a question I have. I mean, I know how I feel, and I have a feeling I know how you feel, Ray, but just so you can articulate it. So many people say that with technology, making so many inroads, that it's allowed more bands to record than ever before. And with that has come a whole glut of really bad music. And that may be so, but would you say that there's more good music now than ever before?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because now, and a lot of, they don't even need me to promote themselves. You know what I mean? There's, if you're good at social media, excuse me, there's so many other ways to promote yourself and get your music out there. Absolutely. Because let's face it, I mean, having worked with major labels, I saw bands come and go. I remember when in 1990 when I first started EMI, Capitol signed the Cave Dogs, and I go, "Wow, the Cave Dogs, great!" And the Capitol promotion guy looked at me, "You know who they are?" I go, "Yeah, I have like their singles, Oh my god! Like this guy looked at me like I had three heads, like he knew they weren't going anywhere, not on a major label anyway. And then one and done. I feel bad for these people. Some people never recover from that, and now, if if it's not through me or some of the other labels, you can still have a career and still sell your music. For me, as you know, I'm about the physical product. I'm not.
Thank God for that.
You're seeing what you see behind you. You don't see the rest of my house. I'm a big, like you, big record collector, big CD collector. I mean, the only things I'll download, and I don't even download much, is like things just to hear. If people send me a link, I don't even burn into a disc. And then I have a friend, and I don't burn off of other sites, but I have a friend who will burn me things off of YouTube for me. Like, I love, British 60s music, but I'm not paying $500 for a single, but I'll look it up, and at YouTube, God bless it. I mean, you can find the A and the B side there, so I'll make a list of all the links, and I'll say, "Hey, Frank, burn me this." And again, it's just for me, because if I want to hear it, I can hear it. It's like, yeah, would I like to have the original? Absolutely. But I like too much stuff to drop that kind of money.
Of course.
On one item, so, but yes, today there's so much more out there. And because of the whole social networking, that's how I'm being contacted by bands, that I would never know about. These are bands, they're contacting who have records out that I've never even seen a review on.
Yeah.
So they find out about me somehow, which is good. But and I'm always open to that, and I appreciate that they do. And and I'm upfront with them. I tell them what I can or can't do, and I let them make that decision. But and then there's people you approach that you want to do a physical product, and they're maybe young and don't know, and they'll just say, "Nah, we're happy with digital. Nobody buys CDs anymore.
Now those people need to be.
We're happy with CDs and vinyl, and I get the vinyl part of it. I like vinyl too, but I'm thinking like you're ignoring." A whole other element of people. How much longer that's going to be around, I don't know. But why not try it? And if I'm paying for it, what have you got to lose?
Exactly.
If it's 25, if it's 300, if it's 100 more people that have your music, wouldn't you want that? Because God forbid when I'm gone, they'll maybe continue to follow you, if you're still around, or they'll, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand it, but you try to convince them, I don't do a hard sell. I lay it all out.
Right.
And, if they're interested, that I like it, then we proceed.
And
earlier you said very modestly, there's so many ways to sell CDs or records these days. They don't need me. Well, here's why they do need you, because social media is a vast space, and there's no, without people like you, there's no central source. People get overwhelmed with all the stuff that's out there, and some people will just tune it out because they can't handle being overwhelmed. With Kool Kat, they can go to one central place and they can see all the stuff, and I think that is just immensely important.
Well, thank you, and realize too, what I feature is a drop in the bucket of what's really out there.
Sure.
I kind of serve as the filter. And again, my whole way I approach this is it's something I would want to have in my collection if I was a consumer.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to tell you, Mark's new record is great if I don't really think so, because ultimately it's going to come back to bite me. I'm going to lose customers. Then you're crying wolf after a while, and it's like, oh, he said all these other things were great.
No, exactly.
I believe him, and I don't want that to happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope, whatever I release or feature, I hope that at least garner some attention, and at least make your own decision. But at least I'm presenting it to you, and I'm kind of it's through the filter, like I could have been offered 20 titles this week, but here's the 7 I thought were the best for this week. You know what I mean? So. But when I said it other ways, like a lot of these bands, some are really savvy. I mean, they've got their own, mailing lists and things like that. If they're a local band and they're relatively popular, from any area, any city in the country, they have a way to sell CDs without my help. Now I'll reach maybe different people than they reach, but for a startup, a band that doesn't have those kind of connections or outlets, that's what kind of disappoints me sometimes, where I'm thinking, I just found out about you, and nobody knows who you are, like at least let me present you to the people on Facebook and all these pop groups. And, at least they might not like it, or they will, but at least they're exposed to it, where maybe otherwise they wouldn't be if it wasn't for someone like me, because these people wouldn't know these other places to go and promote their music, and that's the thing, when you post on Facebook, I try not to overdo it. It's not a daily commercial for me. My thing is, it's not only, it's to promote the company, but it's also, every week I'm not releasing 7 records every week. Maybe one of them is mine, but the rest are other people's. So it's to kind of create awareness of them too, and doing them a service as well, and for them having faith in me to even stock and promote that title for them.
Ray, if you had, what's the one record that you would love to release if you could?
Something that's already been out?
Well, let's start with something that's already been out that maybe you have
well, I mean, not counting the Beatles or the Stones or anything like that.
Yeah.
I want to say maybe Rockpile, Seconds of Pleasure. I mean, that was a big record. When I was in bands in the late 70s, early 80s, they were our blueprint. I mean, we did Nick Lowe songs. We did, Dave Edmunds songs. That whole kind of pop meets rockabilly meets, rock and roll kind of thing. That kind of summed up a lot of my tastes back then in one place. I love that record. That would be the one that's already released. Something that's never come out.
There you go.
Never come out on CD that you just can't get.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think I could think of artists, but not. I would love to do a Paul Weller release, like Paul Weller in his. He does all kinds of different stuff now, but that early solo period or Stanley Road, like that kind of rootsy kind of period. I loved his stuff back then. He would be someone I would. Would love to put, and it'll never happen, but I would love to put a record.
Good answer, though. Good answer.
But Squeeze, anything back in from that period, the prime period, they were one of my favorites too. Anything that I could have done with them would have been great. But that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I had
the Dodgers albums. How about the Dodgers?
Benefit would be.
That's never been on CD, has it?
No, it never. Fringe Benefit? No, but it might be. Stay tuned. I have a connection to someone, so it very well could happen.
One of the best recent releases on Kool Kat, there it is, Sun Salt in Half, Triptych. That's one of my favorite recent releases on Kool Kat.
They did a great job. No offense to the other people, one of the best produced releases I've done.
Certainly.
I mean, they really are very meticulous in their production, and they did a great job. Yeah.
Wonderful package too. Wonderful.
Any plans for a box set by anybody at some point?
Wow.
Well, next year's the Kool Kat 25th anniversary. I thought about that. You're doing something, that's it's kind of
the best of Kool Kat on a box.
Yeah, something. Yeah, you got to throw some unique things in there to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I was approached by a label recently about doing something with John Howard, some kind of a box set.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, like a co-release. That wasn't my idea. That was someone else's. But I don't know where that's going to go. But I thought about that, and I talked to a label in Europe about doing a series of Kool Kat, like greatest hits vinyl releases, like maybe several volumes. Again, you know, I don't want being a consumer as you guys are. You don't want to be buying things over and over again. You got to put something on there to make it special, to make you want to buy it. You know what I'm saying? So, it would take some work to go back and see if people have stuff in their archives, maybe
Sure.
to throw out there, to kind of add on to what's out. And the other thing is, with doing over 200 CDs, who don't you want to offend? If you
Yeah, there's always that.
If you don't put their track on there or a track by them, it's kind of hard. But
well, you know what? If you did a nice big box set of like vinyl 45s, the best like Kool Kat singles, you could put it in a tin can with a pull tab. It looks like a cat food.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That's a good idea, Mark.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, really.
And you can use them in your jukebox.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's where I'd put them. That's awesome.
That is a good idea. Do you remember there was a promotional Keith in the can, the Keith Richards?
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
The can that came out, it was in a little, there were 3-inch CDs in a little tin.
A little tin, yeah.
It had a skull ring on the lid. Yeah, that was a promotional piece, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Well, Ray, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for being here and doing this.
It makes me open to doing more like this. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I felt very comfortable with you guys, and I appreciate that. That makes a big difference, and I consider you guys friends, and
likewise,
known each other a long time, and that I'm glad to be finally a part of this as the Babe Ruth issue of episode of your podcast, and I wish you the best for future.
Well, thank you, Ray.
Anytime you want to have me, I'm more than happy to. Or if you want to reach out to anybody on the label, if you need help, let me know.
We will. Thank you.
Well, once again, Lisa checked in, said great interview. Thank you, Lisa, for hanging out with us. Staying with Andy Hartley.
Checked in from the UK.
Yeah. And scrolling along the bottom is koolkatmusic.com. So everything we've been talking about, if you want to check out all the releases, everything that Ray's got in the catalog online, koolkatmusic.com. Check it out. Ray, thank you again for being a part of episode number 60 of Material Issues.
Yes, thank you so much,
my friend. And we will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Well, David, there we go. Great interview with a good friend of both of ours, Ray Gianchetti of Kool Kat.
Yeah, Ray's a very cool guy, very upbeat. Yeah, I mean, this was a slam dunk. I knew this would be a good one because he's into it.
Yes, indeed. That was a lot of fun. And speaking of fun, you got IPO LA starting tomorrow. I'm going to get
IPO LA starts tomorrow, goes through Saturday the 23rd. No show on Friday, unfortunately, but we've got them, other than that, all the way through the 23rd in various venues around Los Angeles. Actually, 3 venues this year. Redwood Bar, downtown LA, Molly Malone's, which is just a little bit south of Hollywood, and The Trip, which is in Santa Monica. I'm really looking forward to it as always.
I bet they have a pretty cool T-shirt place called The Trip.
If they do, I'll be all over it. You know that.
I know.
I mean, honestly, I haven't been there yet, and that's the case with a lot of venues we use for IPO. I get them recommended by different band members, and I trust. If it's someone I trust, and the club is amenable to having us, and things work out detail wise, we'll do it. The bands have virtually never let me down in that respect. If they say a venue's good, then it turns out to be good.
Right. Yeah. Well, good. Well,
So
we got that to look forward to. Especially Saturday through Saturday next week after Friday night's off. So if you're in those areas and near those clubs, make sure you check out IPO LA.
Yeah, please do. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's been 3 years for obvious reasons, and we need it back. Actually, Andy, they're not close together, but they're all on different days, so you don't have to go from one show to another. Thank you. You don't have to go from one show to another like you do with a Cavern Club and the Cavern Pub. So one venue per day. So that makes it convenient.
Oh, good.
So next week, at this point we don't have a guest next week, but maybe we will. You know how things go here. Sometimes you get somebody at the 11th hour, but we do have a guest scheduled for the 27th.
Yeah, the 27th is going to be good. And I actually pulled up the page so I wouldn't get this completely wrong, but we're going to have Steve Young. He was
not the football player.
Not the football player, but Steve was the staff writer on the Letterman Show, nominated for 19 Emmy Awards. 19 wow. This guy was nominated for. What I started to know him for was his documentary called Bathtubs Over Broadway.
Yes.
An incredible documentary on industrial music and industrial albums that if you're into collecting and albums of music, it's an incredible documentary.
Let's not mislead people. When we're saying industrial, we don't mean like bands like Skinny Puppy. Explain what industrial means.
Well, industrial is like if the Maytag Corporation was going to have their big convention in Chicago in 1960, they would put on big productions and shows all about Maytag to pump up their sales staff and everybody that was flown in as the top salesman. And what they would do is they would hire writers, sometimes very well-known songwriters, to write, these songs in his production, like Maytag is the best, and it'd be fully produced in studio songs, and then they would press it to vinyl and give a copy to everybody attending the conventions. Right. So if it was a 3,000 person convention for let's just say Maytag, each person walked away with an album. But think about how rare those albums are today. They weren't released in stores. They were only given away. And Steve Young did a documentary on tons of these things that are out there that he's collected over the years. And then he wrote like a big coffee table book about it all. And it's just fascinating. The people that are, he's interviewed that were the songwriters for these things and how they did it. And he's a funny guy. Obviously, he wrote for the Letterman Show. I'm just very excited because it's going to be a slightly different guest for us, but still music related. And I think you're going to love it.
Yeah, check out Bathtubs Over Broadway. I'm trying to remember which streaming service has it now. I think Netflix. Yeah, but we'll. All I should do is Google it, and you'll see where it's being shown. But yeah, it's a fun documentary and very informative.
Very informative.
I had no idea that there was a slew of these records. I'd seen one or two in my life, but I didn't know there were this many. It was pretty.
There are some that go for thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Because
we know all about that.
It's crazy. And then after that, again, we have a lot of irons in the fire. We always say that because we actually do. And it's a matter of just...
we come through.
We come through. So stay tuned here at Material Issues. MaterialIssues.com is Facebook. Make sure you subscribe. You join our channel. You'll always be told what's coming up next week. On Monday, we always announce, hey, here's what we got going on. So... and
a big goodbye from Fleagle, Bingo, Drooper, and Snork. Yeah, those are the Banana Splits. I just looked it up.
The Banana Splits, Tra-la-la.
That album on their album on Decca is going for about $30. In like VG Plus. So it's good stuff. It's actually really good bubblegum stuff.
It is good stuff.
I mean, a lot better than one might think. You think of the Banana Splits as a show for like 4-year-old kids, but it was not. And musically, it certainly was not.
No. Even the show was not targeted at 4-year-old kids. Just like my favorite cartoon, Super Chicken.
That's right.
That was not targeted to kids. That was a lion butler that made him a martini, and just because he got a little drunk, he thought he had superpowers. And this was a Saturday morning cartoon.
Right. I hope to find a Lancelot Link in the Evolution Revolution T-shirt.
That would be cool.
That one of those characters has a great name, Bananas Marmoset. I love that. The thing about that show, and if any of you are listening ever watched it, you might think I'm nuts, but after you watch a few of those episodes, you forget they're monkeys.
Yeah,
because they've got the human voices, and they're kind of doing the stuff that that they're talking about doing, you just don't even think about it anymore.
Oh man,
that's another really great one. That's a great album too. If you ever find the Lancelot Link one,
someone got me. Yeah, you knew the job was dangerous when you took it, Fred. That's Super Chicken.
Oh, that's a Super Chicken line. Yeah, that's one I never really watched. So.
That's because Super Chicken kept because he was drunk all the time. He kept doing stuff that the lion, the butler, would get injured for. And he's like, "You knew the job was dangerous when you took it, Fred."
Oh, that's great.
That's the classic tagline. Oh God, he and the super sauce, and they even called it the sauce, which is which is like another term for alcohol. The sauce.
Oh yeah, there were always subversive things in those kind of cartoons for sure.
We could do a whole episode just on those great cartoons.
Subversion in cartoons.
We need to find some of the old cartoons.
I almost wrote a paper on cartoon physics, like how for example when a cartoon character runs off the cliff, he doesn't fall until he realizes. There's no land behind. He's like standing up there in midair, and then suddenly realizes that there's no ground under. And it's like, and then starts falling. That's cartoon physics, among other things.
That's kind of like you and I when we say something, and then about 2 seconds later we go,
Well, yeah, a lot of that.
We just said, oh my Lord, we could do a whole thing.
Frankenstein Jr. and the Impossibles. What's that?
I don't know who that is.
I think I remember The Impossibles as a cartoon, but I don't remember Frankenstein Jr.
Huh. I don't know. Interesting.
Frankenberry, of course.
Frankenberry.
Anyway, let's call it a day for everyone, or an evening, or wherever you are. We had a great show at number 60. Super Chicken. Yeah. And everyone have a great rest of your evening or afternoon. And thank you again very much for watching. Tell your friends to join us every Wednesday.
Thanks, David. Always a pleasure. Everybody, good night.
Good night. Thank you.